What does it mean to be a Unitarian Universalist in 2025? What are we actually choosing? This morning, Reverend Anne Barker will invite us into a reflective workshop space where we consider the emerging possibilities. Sure. Tansei, hello, bonjour. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is a traditional meeting ground and home for many Indigenous peoples, including Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Anishinaabe, and Nakota Sioux. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are with us today, those who have gone before us, and the youth who inspire us. Land recognition calls us to remember our responsibility to deepen our understanding of Treaty 6, to participate in and support the ongoing process of truth, reconciliation, and healing. Welcome to Westwood, a place where both your laughter and tears, joys and concerns, complaints and ideas, your passions, and the exploration of your spiritual truths, whatever they may be or become, are welcome here. We welcome you regardless of your gender, who you love, your wealth, or your education. We try to practice reverence for the earth and attempt to engage in acts of compassion that honor the dignity of every person. Here, music is an expression of our joy. Worship brings us together to celebrate what is important in our lives, and acts of justice are a symbol of our hope. My name is Dawn Hunter. I'm the service leader today, and I'm glad you joined us. And do come back, as our services are always varied. Afterwards, please stay for coffee and conversation. And now for our opening words.
We come together this morning with curiosity, wondering what might touch our hearts and minds. We come for connection, to be with old friends and in the hope of making new ones. We come for an hour of calm, a reset and renewal, where we may lay down all that we carry and be present just to this time, this space, these people. We light our chalice in the spirit of curiosity, connection, and calm.
All right. Here's our first note. Here we go. Come, come, whoever you are, wonder, worshiper, lover of leaving, houses no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, come, come, whoever you are, waters of worship, the love of living, come, yet again, come, 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 whoever you are, though you've broken your vow 1,000 times, though you've broken your vow 1,000 times, though you've broken your vow 1,000 times, come yet again, come. I notice that it doesn't matter who is here, how many people, we all sound amazing when we sing together. Candles of Concern and Celebration is a time in our week that we find value in sharing with each other something important that's going on in our lives and the lives of those around us, to celebrate what brings us joy and to share what's weighing on our hearts. Lighting a candle, speaking our concerns, and bearing witness to each other can allow, in solidarity, a little piece of letting go and making space for peace. Now, each week during our Sunday service, we take a few minutes to acknowledge the gifts we both bring to and receive from this compassionate community. Gifts of talent, time, and treasure. And today, we get to enjoy the musical talent of our dear Rebecca, who is also our choir leader, as well as the gifts of time and service from David, our coffee host, and his two furry helpers, furry four-legged helpers, be a little more specific there, and our tech team, Bill, Hannah, and Lorian. Now this morning, we also have a special collection for the sharing of our faith fund, and our president, Lorian Kennedy, will tell us about it.
The Sharing Our Faith Fund was started in 2000 or 2001, and it is really what it says it is. It's a way for us to share with other congregations, for other congregations to reach out with a helping hand for congregations that have projects they want to do but can't quite manage to do it with their own funds. I don't know, how many people had heard about the Sharing Our Faith Fund before now? A few, okay, old-timers probably. So what the CUC, the Canadian Unitarian Council, does is have a central place where congregations can send in donations into a pool of money that then gets doled out when other congregations apply for grants. So in order to qualify, our congregation has to have had a Sharing Our Faith Sunday and had made some donations. So I thought you might like to know how we have benefited from that fund over the years. So the year after it was started, in 2002, we got $1,000 towards a part-time minister. In 2007, we got $1,500 to help with moving expenses for a minister. In 2014, We got another $1,042 to help to upgrade our sound system. In 2019, we got $1,085 to help us purchase this television that we've been using so much. And in 2022, after the pandemic meant we started needing to use Zoom, we got $5,000 from this fund to help us build our multi-platform system. It's really, really helped us in the past. So today, I hope you'll be generous. Make out a check if you have your checkbook with you, put in cash in the box. This is the box. And if you fill out an envelope, then we can give you a tax receipt. But please, for this one, make sure you put sharing our faith, either on your check or on the envelope, so we know that it's to go to the fund. And if you wish, you can make an e-transfer. The address is on this screen, and it's put sharing our faith in the message that goes with your e-transfer. So it's to Westwood, but with sharing our faith in the message. I hope we'll all be really generous today. We have certainly benefited. This will be by the door.
And Lorian, should the checks be made out to Westwood Unitarian?
Make the checks out to Westwood, please. Westwood Unitarian Congregation.
Oh, and I'd like to light one final candle. I forgot to do this, sorry. For all of those concerns and celebrations that remain in our hearts. Now please join us as we sing From You I Receive. Reverend Anne Barker has been a UU since 1998, when her kids signed up on their first visit to be in the Unitarian Congregation of Saskatoon Christmas Pageant. She became a Unitarian Universalist Minister in 2008. After 14 years of parish ministry in Edmonton, Anne and her wife returned to Saskatoon in 2022 to be near loved ones. They enjoy every chance they get to spend time with their friends and family, both birth and chosen, especially the kids, grandkids, and grandpets, who bring such joy into their lives. Anne joined the Canadian Unitarian Council staff team in May 2023 and delights in working with Canadian congregations and the people who love them. On June 1st, 2025, she will add the duties of Transitional Executive Director to her position. And now I'd like to welcome Anne to speak with us this morning.
When we come here to a Sunday service, what are we actually choosing? And how is choosing to be a Unitarian Universalist different from simply being one? What is the difference between showing up and being present and intentionally choosing what that means? In this moment in time, a time I suspect that future historians will not reflect on gently, what are we called to do and to be? And how will we help one another through? Ultimately, these are all very personal decisions, unique to each of our lives and circumstances, driven by our beliefs and our commitments. And collectively, we help one another to figure out what those are. Author Jane McGonigal writes, "Urgent optimism is a balanced feeling. It's recognizing that, yes, there are challenges and risks ahead, while also staying realistically hopeful that you have something to contribute to how we solve those challenges and face those risks. Urgent optimism means you're not staying awake all night worrying about what might happen. Instead, you're leaping out of bed in the morning with a fire in your pants to do something about it. Urgent optimism is knowing that you have agency and the ability to use your unique talents, skills, and life experiences to create the world you want to live in. Jane McGonigal is many things, but her primary titles are futurist and game designer. She is the only known expert who holds PhDs in both areas. She's also the author of the incredibly practical and urgently optimistic book, Imaginable: How to Create a Hopeful Future in Your Own Life, Your Community, the World. Urgent optimism is knowing that you have agency and the ability to use your unique talents, skills, and life experiences to create the world you want to live in. Now, if you were able to attend the Friday evening of the CUC Collab event last November, you will already know how passionate I am about Jane's work and its great value in our Unitarian Universalist context. Her book, Imaginable, is being used by wise beings around the world to interrupt patterns of doing the same things over and over, harder and harder, and hoping for different outcomes. I first learned about it at a United Church Flourishing event led by their moderator, the Right Reverend Dr. Cameron Lansdowne, and I was hooked. I've since learned that other UU colleagues are using it with their congregations to great effect. If you have only one takeaway today, I hope it will be that Jane McGonigal's book, Imaginable, is a treasure, full of ideas and exercises that invite and even push us to imagine the world through transformed eyes and take practical action to make it so. She invites us to train and flex our imagination muscles because we have to be able to imagine something if we are going to enact it. And her work is hopeful, but not unreasonable or ridiculous. Here she comes again. Imagination is the first act of pulling the future into the present. It builds urgency, motivation, and a community for action when we share our imagination with others. Questioning also pulls the future into the present. When we frame future possibilities as questions instead of predictions, we can be braver and bolder in our thinking. We don't have to be certain. We can be curious. We can reveal our curiosities to others. We can start asking the same questions together. So let's keep going. What other futures can we imagine? What other futures should we imagine? Are you ready to defy linear time? Are you ready to start pulling? That's the end of the reading. Now, Unitarian Universalists, we're good with questions. It's kind of what we do. We question everything. I wonder what would happen if, as we dare to imagine a thriving future, as we ask questions about what that might look like and how we could nurture that vision into being, I wonder what would happen if we use our mad skills around questioning intentionally to be really curious together, to defy the predictions, and to use our powers to pull us together to help create a different future for our congregations, for our planet, and for all people. I want to tell you a little story about imagining. It begins at a CUC staff meeting. We're a small team and we meet on Zoom weekly because we're spread all across the country. Our executive director, Vida Ng, was telling us a story about the Avalon Fund. Have you heard of the Avalon Fund? Yeah, I hadn't either. When the Avalon Fellowship in Newfoundland closed years ago, they gathered their assets and invested them in a trust, the Avalon Fund, to be held for the future for a time when there was a UU presence in Newfoundland once again. Now, at the moment, that trust was feeling less like an opportunity and more like a burden. It is next to unbreakable, even with the donor's consent and recommendation. So there's no arising group in Newfoundland and the money is locked in. So while it has grown to a substantial amount, it had nowhere to go. And Vita was sharing this problem with us so we could understand what she was working on. But while she was sharing the problem, something different was happening in the Zoom room. There were lights sparkling in people's eyes, and you could see that we had all started dreaming of what we would do with a few $100,000 UU dollars, especially the youngest staff. I'm pretty sure they were launching endeavors in their imagination and already had work plans half drawn up by the end of the conversation. Now, have you ever played the If I Had $1 Million game with someone where you imagine if you won a lottery or $1 million just landed in your lap, what would you do with it? I take games like that very seriously. I start out kind of wild, thinking about ridiculous things because there's no constraints, no pre-existing rules or conditions. And I think about, how do I want to feel? That's my values question. And how could this windfall help me get there? I want to feel ethical and generous and compassionate. And, well, you get it. You know all these things. I want to live into all of my values, my principles, and with a sudden boost, like a financial windfall, it's easier to imagine creative ways of how to do it. You know that feeling when you're on a Zoom meeting and you can tell that the people are half listening and half Googling? I'm pretty confident that more than a few of the staff team were Googling cost of living in Newfoundland. Because we had just these simple prompts: a fund of money, UU presence, location. And there weren't a lot of limitations or details beyond that. Now, none of us live in Newfoundland, and it's easier to get creative imagining something outside of your everyday reality. All your practical things don't get tangled up in the story. So we were imagining a bunch of different things. Congregation comes up first, obviously, and then a social service project, or partnering with someone on an existing initiative that could use an infusion of energy and optimism and a respectful dose of UUism. We certainly didn't want to do something like top-down or impose a colonial model, but free from constraints, with a bunch of money in our metaphorical hands and no tight guidelines, our imagination soared. I'm a UU. I like creating things. What would I do with that fund? What would you do? Imaginations are just waiting to take flight. What was in some ways a vexing problem was equally in other ways a creative launch pad. Now, when I shared this story with my wife, Lori, she lit up just the same way. And the next question was, did it matter if we had that kind of money? It would be nice, but it isn't actually necessary to inspire dreaming. And the reality is, somebody does. Somebody has that kind of money available. And if a dream is compelling and shared, it will catch the imagination and generosity of others. I'm going to share one more story, and then I'm going to invite you to sit with your own imagination for a few minutes. In January, I visited some of our BC congregations, which meant I also got to spend a few nights with family between meetings and services. So I got to have a deeper conversation with my brother and sister-in-law, way better than our usual one dinner a year if we're lucky. And I'm embarrassed to tell you what I learned. These lovely people had come to my ordination in 2009. And I talk about ministry and work quite freely, and they had no idea what UUs are. They had no idea I don't actually identify as Christian. I'm Christian friendly, but it's not my orientation. Now, they're not unintelligent or simple people. And they had no idea what a UU is. And in large measure, that's on me. When we got into it, they thought Unitarian Universalism sounded really cool. And so they asked me, how do people find out about you? How do they know what you are? Those were very good questions. Now we're going to take a few minutes for reflection. Rebecca will play softly in the background for us, and when we're done, I'll come back with 2 quick stories and some closing thoughts. I invite you to let your constraints down. So here are some suggestions for you to choose from. You could imagine this community, Westwood, 10 years from now. What would you like to find here? Or, if it's a better fit, imagine, say, $300,000 for a Newfoundland project, where you're not personally involved, so it's a little freer to go wild. Or maybe you're harboring a secret dream for Unitarian Universalism in Canada. Feel free to sit with that. If all of these things seem too big or too far out, you could sit with, what's one small thing I'd like to see changed or enriched here in my community that I could help with? Or rest. If you could use a rest, please rest. Thank you. That was beautiful. Jimmy Carter taught Sunday school every week from World War II until COVID. That's 75 years. Every Sunday, he led a class and he'd look out into the room, often filled with strangers. People come from around the world to hear what he had to say. He would speak of his week, what was going on in the world, what moved him, and what mattered. And he made sense of it all through the lens of his evangelical faith. His family, his friends, even his political opponents said that he was the same person at home as he was at work, as he was out in the world. His values were deeply rooted, strongly held, and represented in every move he made. Now, during his funeral this past January, I think it was his grandson that told the story that Carter was deeply influenced by a sermon he heard as a young man where the minister asked, "If you were arrested for being a Christian, would there be enough evidence to convict you?" Now, I prefer the other definition of convicted, like she was a woman of great conviction, but either way, it works. Conviction can be heroic, like being on the front lines of a cause, or it can be quiet, like supporting a community and its people in small ways. It can be as simple as literally sharing your faith with someone. How had I missed sharing my faith with my beloved family? Bonus points, it wasn't too late. But let's get back to Carter's inspiration. If you were arrested for being a UU, would there be enough evidence to convict you? And what would that evidence be? How would you measure? If I'm a person of deep UU conviction, and I am, how do people know? What do they know? It's not always about sharing who UUs are. It's equally valid to simply be good and kind and just, to be caring and inclusive, to be curious, creative, and joyful in my faith, to be urgently optimistic and visionary for a better world, to never give up being who we truly are, even if all we can simply do is breathe. Now, our world is in ever-heightening tension as democracy and collaboration are put to the test. On February 11th, the late Pope Francis wrote to U.S. Catholic bishops, including this paragraph that resonates so well with our Unitarian Universalist understanding of the world. And while I'm not entirely aligned with the work he did, I feel inspired by this expression of courage and even daring. And more than ever, it's critical that we figure out how to work together between and beyond identities for the common good. Now, the letter referenced the mass deportations in the U.S., and the late Pope wrote, "Likewise, Jesus Christ, loving everyone with a universal love, educates us in the permanent recognition of the dignity of every human being without exception." And he goes on to say that all the Christian faithful and people of goodwill, that's us, are called upon to consider the legitimacy of norms and public policies in the light of the dignity of the person and his or her fundamental rights, not vice versa. So he's saying that we cannot define the value or dignity of a person based on norms or public policies, but rather policy should be defined by the dignity of every human being. We are called to be brave enough to resist what opposes our values. I'd go so far as to reason that the Pope was encouraging civil disobedience and to resist what is harmful requires us to lock into our urgent optimism. In these times, where the very notions of democracy and sovereignty are feeling fragile, where uncertainty and anger are so often the leading emotions, this is when our gifts of connection, community, and curiosity and calm are so essential and sustaining. This is when it's important to remember that we can still get excited. We have something truly precious here with one another, and what we do really matters. We have the ability and the collective resources to imagine a better path and to share that path with others. When we work together, we can help one another not be overwhelmed by the mounting anxieties, and help others to know that there is a place for them to belong, where there is kindness and honesty and hope. We can be a house of love, respecting the inherent dignity of all. May it always be so. Blessed be.
Or remain seated and join us in singing, "This is my song." And now Anne will give us our benediction, and we will extinguish the candles.
If you were arrested for being you, would there be enough evidence to convict you? What would that evidence be? How would they measure? How do you measure? May we all go forth enlivened by our connections, encouraging one another's imaginations, stretching our courage muscles, and resisting injustice everywhere. May our hearts carry the gifts of curiosity, connection, and calm as we carry our faith into the week and into the world. With love and gratitude. Blessed be.
And now for our postlude.
voices, I heard them calling my name. Is this the sweet sound that calls the young sailors? The voice might be one and the same. I've heard it too many times to ignore it. It's something that I'm supposed to be. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. La-da-da-dee-da-da-doo,
I just want to make a comment. I wonder if anybody other than me has noticed that the last 3 or 4 services had the same people leading, planning, executing. Between Rebecca, Dawn, and Margaret, I think we wouldn't have services without them right now. So I want to give them a hand.
It's a great pleasure